What does it really take to grow, modernize, and lead in an industry that is constantly evolving? Well, I am Monica Duani, entrepreneur, insurance, and innovation leader, and someone who believes that transformation isn't something we talked about, it is something we built. On Transcend with M, we sit down with leaders shaping the future of the insurance industry, founders, executives, and operators navigating growth, complexity, and change. They're not just success stories, they're real conversations about structure, resilience, leadership, and the decisions that strengthen businesses from the inside out. Because the future of insurance demands more than growth, it demands readiness. This is Transcend with M, where we rise, modernize, and lead with purpose. All right. Welcome, people, to season 3 of Transcend with Him. And today I have with me a special guest. Their name is Carey Wallace, a person that I have admired her from the far. We recently did a podcast together too. So make sure that you check out, the Agency Focus podcast with Carey and her daughter, which is amazing and provides so many insights into the industry and so many insights for those agency owners that are looking to get their financials on ship. So thank you, Carey, for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I was super happy to hear from you and love to have a conversation with you anytime.
All right, awesome. So for those that don't know you, which is very difficult because you've been in this industry for a very long time, but maybe those, new upcoming agencies that don't know you, tell us a little bit about your story, your upbringing, what do you focus on so people can get to know you and what you do a little bit more.
Sure. So, well, first of all, upbringing, I'm an Army brat, so I lived everywhere. And, we raised our family in Columbus, Ohio, which is where I found insurance. I think it's always interesting to me how people find their way to this industry. And most times it's not intentional. It seems, sadly, it's unintentional, but it attracts some amazing people. But anyway, when we were in Columbus, I entered the industry because the Big I of Ohio and the PIA of Ohio were merging. So I joined that state association to help with that merger. Prior to being in insurance, I was in a tech startup, so I had some M&A background. And I thought, man, this is a great opportunity. It's close to my home. It's a pretty cool project. I thought, I'll do this project. I'll find another tech company and I'll be on my way. And I haven't left the industry since, which is kind of interesting. I fell in love with both the industry, but mostly the people. The entrepreneurs that I got to meet that sat on both of those boards were incredible human beings. And I decided this was the industry for me. So I have been in the industry for almost 20 years at this point.
Amazing.
And, fast forward, I worked with that association. And once that merger was complete, there was this looming question, what's our value proposition as a state association? And one of the biggest things happening, even at that time, was a lot of M&A activity. So we created consulting services to help agents understand what drives the value of their agency, what is the value of their agency, and make it affordable for agents to learn about that. And I'm super proud of that. And then we also created a data analytics company, which I led and was able to learn quite a bit about agents at that point. And at some point it dawned on me, I don't know that I can consult, run a data analytics company and be the CFO of a state association. So I chose to consult and get as close to agents as I possibly can. So I founded Agency Focus, which we are focused on helping independent insurance agents understand their business from a financial perspective and make some clarity in those decisions that you have to make as a business owner and help drive the value of agencies up as much as we possibly can.
Amazing. And you do such an amazing job. I know that you are involved in with so many different people, so many different associations, so many different agencies. And I only hear amazing things about the work that you do, especially when it comes to identifying those small things that people don't think that can make a big difference when they get a evaluation, right? Because we're all in our business, we all love our agency, so we're blinded sometimes to the certain things, right? That commission structure that, oh, it worked very well, I think it's great, but you're looking for another perspective, and you're like, that's not going to work long term. So I would love to hear a little bit about the experiences, right? Positive experiences or challenging experiences that you've had with independent agents like myself, when either we think we have our finances straight, and those that I have seen that still till today don't have the QuickBooks, have a spreadsheet, and they still don't know where commissions are coming from.
Yeah. So I think where I'd love to start here is I recognize it's uncomfortable to send your financial information to somebody else that you've never met, or that maybe you've met, you've heard a couple podcasts, but you don't know them. I mean, the reality is I run a small business, you ran a business, all of the people I work with run businesses, and it's very personal to open up your financials and hand that over to someone. So it's never lost on me how difficult that is for someone to do that, knowing that what we're doing is evaluating it and coming back and saying, this is what's driving your value up. These are the things that maybe you could do differently to drive it up even further. These are the things that may be hurting your value and things that you might want to do. So, when you hand that over, someone is going to come back and give you constructive criticism and also tell you where you're killing it and you're doing a great job. But, I never take lightly the trust that people place in us by handing over their financials. So, first and foremost, don't be afraid to do that, because it allows you to see your business in a different way. And there is zero judgment in what we do, because we've seen absolutely everything. And that's okay, because the reality is, if someone asked me about coverage, I would not be well versed and I would not be able to give you the ins and outs and all the different facets that you need in order to advise your clients, just like I don't expect an independent insurance agency owner to know the ins and outs and everything around financials. And that's what we're here to help bridge the gap. So I guess I would start with that. Number one, be open to that, because it only makes you better. You get to see your business through a different lens. And there are lots of different factors that drive the value of an agency. But I think the number one is, once you're able to understand what to look for in your financials, what to look for in your book of business, what to look for in the structure you've created, the compensation that you've decided upon, how you structure your agreements, all of those things drive the value and the transferability of your agency when you decide to transition internally, sell externally, acquire another agency. All those things matter, and we just help kind of tie them all together, if you will.
Yeah. And I was sharing with you that last week I was speaking with Matt from Legacy Advisors, a great M&A firm. And the answer to the question that I had to him, which basically was, what is something that the agents or an agency owner needs to do in order to start that process of valuation and grasp the best valuation for the business? And he said financials. Bottom line is financials. So here we are with Carey, who's going to help us today understand why financials. So a lot of the agency owners are salespeople, but there is always some sort of gap. And I'm not saying for everybody, but there is a predominant and a constant in between all of them, which is that they all have a very hard time coming from the sales hat to the operator hat. And usually that's when financials hurt the most, right? Because I have seen, agents having 700 memberships for things that don't even matter, or 10 systems just because somebody says, oh, that AI or that data or that dashboard or that thing, it's going to help me, but they never execute or implement it. So I guess the reason why I say that is, while when someone decides to work with you, right, and you're helping them from a financial standpoint, and I think we did talk about this when we did our podcast together for Agency Focus, there is a lot that comes to the surface from an operational standpoint. So I guess the question is, taking away the sales hat, taking away when an agency owner becomes the operator of the business and have to go through this process of looking at their finances when they are trying to get evaluation and understand where do they stand so they understand where they can go. How do you and the team manage that conversation, that operating conversation that it's, I think, is the most difficult thing ever with agency owners?
That's a super great question. So, the process of either becoming a CFO client or getting valuated or getting a valuation of your agency or even benchmarked, we actually take your profit and loss statement and your balance sheet. And first and foremost, we organize it in a way that we can compare it to industry benchmarks. And that allows us to look at the guardrails of an agency your size. What does the most what's the most realistic allocation of your resources? Meaning, what percentage of revenue are you spending on each category in that P&L? And that allows us to see, where are you outperforming the benchmarks? Where are you underperforming in the benchmarks? And gives us a guide to say, okay, this agency, I know their growth rate. I know their profitability rate. I know potentially their retention rate. That's a hard metric for a lot of people to provide to us, but it allows us to see, is your allocation of your resources or percentage of revenue that you're spending in each one of these categories, does it make sense based on your performance? And we can start telling the story that your numbers are creating rather than just looking at metrics. Because most salespeople who look at a financial statement see a sheet full of numbers or a spreadsheet full of numbers. Our job is to create the story that those numbers are telling you and say, is it giving you what you want? Or are there opportunities for us to allocate our resources differently to drive one of those performance metrics in a different way? And so that's where we start, and we use the benchmarks as a guide. I am not saying that everybody should be exactly with those benchmarks, but it allows us to have a conversation. For instance, the largest expense inside every single agency is their people. Has always been, it will remain that way until this industry may or may not shift in a different way. But right now, that is the largest expense inside an agency. But if an agency is really heavily investing in technology, you would expect that technology would be creating efficiency inside the agency. And therefore, that particular agency might have less staff than another agency that's not making that investment. And so the combination between growth rate, technology investment, and people tells a story. And if that's not true, you got to dig further to find out what is happening here. Are we not executing the technology? Are we in a transition where we have a future owner and a current owner there, which makes the employee temporarily overstaffed? Or is it really staffed for growth? Like, you have to find what the story is, but that doesn't make sense. Using those three components, you can start to tell a story. And that's really how I don't just go through and start rattling off numbers to people. I'm looking for the story that the numbers are telling you. So it actually becomes an incredible tool for you, not something you avoid, because not everybody loves numbers as much as I do. I'm fully aware of that.
Some of us are a little bit more inclined to them than most, but yeah, you can tell when people really, really love numbers. They love sales numbers, Carey.
Sure.
I'm not too sure about digging into the P&L too much, right? That's the reality of where we are as independent agents. But will you say that, for the many agencies that you have provided services to, would you say that there is a lack of visibility when it comes to the financials and performance of the team? You mentioned benchmarking KPIs. At my agency, we invested heavily in technology, and I also work with another technology company that it's actually bringing that visibility, right, in a dashboard. So with a click of a button, I can see, for example, the commissions of the carrier, which carriers are paying the most, what is my close or win ratio with with carriers and compare that to people, I can see, how much is my cost of in terms of revenue, profit, and the cost of that individual. I can see different KPIs, right? On these dashboards that we have created in a cohesive system that gives me, a vertical integration into what my numbers are. But is that the reality for insurance agents out there, for insurance agencies out there? Or is there a lack of visibility? Is it a problem?
I love that you had that at your fingertips, but I will tell you, you're the exception, not the rule. There are a lot of agency owners that honestly may have some form of a dashboard that you just said. I think what is lacking is the connection of what those metrics mean and how they impact the value of an agency and what action you can take in order to change your performance or change the value or prepare or weigh your options in the decisions you need to make and know what the cost benefit is of each of those decisions. So again, a screen full of numbers is fantastic. And
Exactly.
everybody gravitates to one or two metrics or maybe five metrics that they're managing to, but you do it based on your comfort level. I think, again, having someone look at your business with you and do a health checkup that is not emotionally tied to it. When I look at a spreadsheet or a dashboard and I see producer names, I don't know those producers. All I know is the performance that's there. And therefore, I can be pretty agnostic and say, well, this is what it's showing me. Is that accurate? I think we all, as business owners, know in our minds the exceptions to the numbers and maybe have some dirty data that we overlook. And therefore, we can't see the message because it may not be as clear as what it could be. I love, love, love that in this industry, we've evolved over the 20 years I've been here of what's available from a technology standpoint, what's available from a data standpoint. And I think it's getting better, but the average agency, let's just say that there's 40,000 independent insurance agencies in the country. 83% of them are under 1.25 million in revenue. So if we're talking about 83%, they have a limited resources to invest in technology and data. They may not have the same dashboards that the agencies that are north of 5 million might have or north of 3 million in revenue because they just don't have the resources. So there still is a gap of awareness of where you are and what systems you use and what data is accurate.
No, and I totally agree with you. Having the numbers and having the accessibility doesn't take away us having to work with people like you, right?
Sure.
Because we
Sure.
are married to our business, so we have blind spots that we don't identify, right? So going through the process of the acquisition of our agency, it took about 14 months to do that. So I started that process and it took
You have to repeat that for everyone. It took you how long?
14 months to get that done. 14 months.
Yeah.
And it was 14 months it wasn't like 14 months of I get an email and I reply in 2 days. No, it was 14 months that 4 days out of the 7 days of the week, I was hours and hours on meetings, reviewing spreadsheets,
Yes.
reviewing numbers, reviewing processes, reviewing things that needed to change, implementing operational changes, ensuring that we were measuring the right way, that we were paying the right way, that we were canceling the small things that do not make sense anymore just because we liked it, taking advantage of, what technology is actually serving us or not. Do we take the risk and cancel this in order to gain Y? Are we willing to do that? So it was the most exhausting, excruciating process I've ever went through, but it was the most amazing experience because I gained so much knowledge and learned how to look at that business completely different, right? And it was with, experts like yourself and others that I wouldn't been able to do that on my own, right?
Sure. Sure.
So you guys play a big role with all of us independent agents in order to gain visibility and think about our businesses a little bit differently and measure them differently. I think
Yeah.
that's the key there, right? We all think that we know what the value of our business is because we have emotions tied to it. But at the end of the day, from the outside coming in, the reality is extremely different. So tell me a little bit about the reactions, when you are helping agencies and you come back to them and you say, hey, your valuation, where your track is actually X and they were expecting Y. What are those reactions? How do we manage those conversations, and what do you consistently see that maybe people like me would not prepare to hear what I heard at that moment in time?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's varied. So I will tell you that many times when people come and they want to get a valuation or a benchmark or fractional CFO, they're coming because they know in 3 to 5 years, they're thinking that it might be time for them to transition, or they want to acquire an agency, or they want just to get a health checkup. Very rarely does someone come to us because they're selling immediately. By then, you can't change the number. So or you don't have enough runway or time to do some of the work in order to change the value of your agency once once a sale is imminent. So I would, number one, do this early. Give yourself 3 to 5 years. 5 years is fantastic because you can do something with the numbers. So if someone is coming to us wanting to get a health checkup or wanting to get a valuation because they're planning, the reaction is typically, let's get to work. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's get to work. Oftentimes they're pleasantly surprised with what the value is of their agency today, but we then say, and here's the 5 areas that we feel would actually improve the value, or here's the 3 or 4 things that really are risk factors that we've got to double down on and we've got to really figure this out. Very rarely is someone majorly disappointed unless they're completely uninformed and they really have no idea what's happening in the industry. Luckily, there's so much in the headlines about what multiples are, et cetera. The ones that I think are neutral or potentially disappointed are the ones that really haven't taken a hard look at their agency, and they're basing things off of what they've heard other people do. And the agencies couldn't be further, more different from each other. So that's such a trap in our industry that you hear someone that has around the same size agency and was able to command a certain a price, which of course is a headline. They never come back and tell you what was the earnout, what was, what was all the factors of that deal. That's one of the biggest traps. So we try to demystify that and really focus on your business and your business alone. But someone that's our favorite kind of customers, the ones that want to do a health checkup because they want to prepare themselves for the next phase that they want to get into. Either if it's want to, grow and expand their team and they want to know, are they staffed appropriately and where should they invest? They want to acquire, or they want to transition internally or externally. That's typically the tipping point when someone comes to us and says, we'd like to understand it. And the report, I will tell you the value that we give you is probably the least important bit of information inside the report. It's what's driving it, which are all the actions that you can take, is what's incredibly valuable. So most times it is, we've armed them now with being able to look at their business in a different way and say, well, I can make those 3 things happen over the next 2 or 3 years. And, I'd love to come and do a recheck at that point to see how we're doing and what that looks like. So most times it's let's roll up our sleeves and get something done kind of attitude, which I appreciate.
Yeah, no. And we love that. It's necessary, right? Execution is the key to success. And when I think once you start having those type of conversations, you have to make a commitment. Yeah, right? You have to make a commitment because now there is no excuse. You know what you need to do. Right? You know what you need to do. There's no excuse anymore. So, Carey, tell us a little bit about where do you think our industry is shifting. There is a lot of buzz about AI, a lot of buzz about data, a lot of buzz about a possibly slowing down. But where do you see the next 6 to 12 months, the industry shifting? How do you think, this is the question I am asking everyone at the end, is how do you think we should prepare? What should be one or two or three items that we should really take into consideration and prepare?
So, the independent insurance agency marketplace is a relationship based industry. There's no two ways around that. And I think the best independent insurance agency owners will really take a step back and think about, what is my value add as an agent? And how do I best serve my customer that now has access to data like they've never had access before? How do I become that advisor? And how do I help them navigate and protect their businesses, their families, their assets as much as I possibly can, and stop being a transactional, focusing on the transaction part of what we do, and the advising part will be the focus. Agents that can do that, I think, will look at their staff and say, who can elevate to an advisor? And what do I need to do to prepare the people on my team that are licensed to become advisors? What training will they need? What training do I need to do to move culturally from all the transactional work that happens inside an agency, knowing that that could become automated and could become much more efficient than it is today? But how do I help the people that are key move to advisor and be okay with that? Like, is it, training? Is it a way to connect with people? What is that? And how to identify who can elevate and who maybe can't elevate? But I think that's the key, is how do you double down on the stuff that makes us different? And it's the same for many industries. I think it's the same for my situation. How do I make sure that everyone on my team can't just work a spreadsheet? That's not the hard part of what we do. It's about advising and making the connections and helping someone feel safe and secure in the decisions they're making. It's the same thing for an independent insurance agency, because you can't automate that. You have got to connect with people. And I think that's the best thing we can do as leaders, is prepare our team to become those advisors that we'd love to be, but we're still bogged down in all this transactional. So
Yes.
that's the advice I would give.
All right. I love it. Well, Carey, thank you so much for sharing all your insights with us today. Where can people find you? How can they reach out to you? And what are you available to do for our industry so they can get in touch with you and, get their financials straight?
Yeah. So the company that I run is called Agency Focus. We're online, and I'm on LinkedIn all over the place. It's hard not to find me, I would think. But, you can reach out to me through our website. You can reach out to me through LinkedIn. We're available to provide valuation, benchmarking, compensation analysis, fractional CFO work. If someone wants to get their house in order, their financial house in order, to prepare for the next phase of what they're trying to do, or just know what the health is of their agency, that's what we're here and designed to do. We only work with independent insurance agents. We do not work with other industries, and we'd love to talk to you.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, there you have it, people. That was Carey Wallace and Monica Duani here with Transcend with M. Don't miss the next episode, season 3, next week, which we will have actually Mr. David Carruthers with us. So we will definitely be having a great conversation about what actually you just said, Carey. How do we become better advisors, right, to our agents? And he has a great practice in regards to that. So we cannot wait to hear his input. So thank you for being here, and thank you all for listening today.